Hello everyone and welcome to yet another excellent game from round 3 of the GRENKE Chess Classic 2019. As usual, you can always check up some of the links in the description below. You can always check up the impressions from the previous round and some of the interviews after the game from the players. If they will be available, they will also be available in the description below, so always keep that in mind. Now getting into this game, we do have some nice footage from it, so let's just check it out. It's 3 very short clips. Vincent Keymer versus Fabiano Caruana. Let's check them out. There's young Vince, looking sharp as always. Then we have this very nice clip again of Vincent. There's blurry Caruana on the left, and also we have this very nice footage of Caruana making a move. Doesn't matter what the position is, as you will not see anything, but there you have it. Just to get into the mood, and now let's check it out. So Vincent has the white pieces, and he opens with d4. So on day 1, Vincent played against World Chess Champion Magnus Carlsen for 7 hours. He almost did something there, but in the end he lost. Then he faced former World Champion Vishy Anand in round 2, and now he faces last year's World Chess Championship challenger Fabiano Caruana. If you want to torture a 14-year-old, this is how you do it. And Caruana replies with knight to f6. We have c4, e6, and now knight to f3, and bishop to b4 with check. Vincent blocks bishop to d2, and now queen to e7, defending the bishop on b4. g3, Vincent prepares to fianchetto the light square bishop, knight to c6, and now a3. Asking Caruana, do you want to go back or do you want to capture on d2? Capturing is the main line, so this is what Caruana does. Queen captures, and now d5 by Vincent. By Caruana. Bishop to g2, both players castle, and here there are 3 games available in the database. All 3 continue with the d captures on c4, but b6 is a new move. This is what Caruana plays, and well, it's as of this moment that we have a completely new game on our hands. Queen to c2. Defending the c4 pawn, also knight to e4. If it comes, it will not come with an attack on the queen. And also the threat is just c captures on d5. That will open an attack from the queen to the knight. But Caruana prevents everything by playing bishop to b7. C captures on d5, e captures on d5, and now knight to c3. Vincent continues developing pieces. And here, knight to d8. Caruana now wants to push c5. He wants to remaneuver the knight. E3 by Vincent, c5 is now being played, attacking the center with a nice c-pawn, and rook f to d1, just developing the rook, knight to e6 by Caruana, and now rook a to c1. And with this move, Vincent finishes development. Caruana still has to decide what to do with the a and the f rook. So rook f to d8, developing to counter the rook on the d file, and now queen to b1 by Vincent. Rook a to c8, Caruana now also finishes development, and here b4 forces Caruana to make a choice. Do you want to capture or do you want to push c4 and block the center? Caruana decides to push c4, and here we have knight to e5. Now this is an excellent knight, and for the moment black doesn't really have anything to kick it away, as he only has a light square bishop, and the knight's, well, he can kick it away by playing something like this, but it's not time for that just yet. Caruana goes for g6, and here he gives Vincent a target, so Vincent immediately decides to go for h4. We have h4 by Vincent, and now knight to f8. The knight will be a nice defending piece there, but also he's preparing knight to d7 to finally trade off this very strong knight Vincent has in the center. We have queen to b2, as Vincent is preparing to push both f4 and g4. Well, if an attack does happen, the queen from b2 will be more likely to join the attack through the second rank. With knight 8 to d7, now preparing to capture on e5, and Vincent pushes f4, now cementing that knight on e5, and if Caruana wants to capture it, then, Vincent will have a semi-open f-file to use for his rooks. We have a6 by Caruana, preparing b5, and now comes bishop to h3, now putting pressure on the rook on c8, and here b5. And Vincent goes for g4. He's not afraid, and his teacher Peter Leko was very impressed by the g4 move. He said that that's how you play chess, not being afraid of Caruana. Just go forward. The queen side is blocked, the center is blocked. You're the one controlling the game, and you're the one who decides when a breakthrough happens on the king side. And here you have to be careful. If you play something like king to g7, then you will face something like g5, and after this knight moves, it will just be a very unpleasant position for black. And you can see now that the queen can join the attack, queen to h2, hence queen to b2 idea. h5 is coming, opening up the h file, and then the queen will be very strong along the h file. So after g4, Caruana decides to get rid of the knight on e5. Knight captures on e5 with f captures on e5, forcing Caruana to move the knight, and now Vincent can use the df file for his rooks. Knight to e4, knight captures, d captures, and now g5. Really controlling the f6 square. Of course, Vincent will now bring his rook over there. Rook to f1 to f6 is coming, and as Caruana doesn't have any knights, he only has a light square bishop, which isn't doing all that much for the moment. It will be very hard to dislodge anything from the f6 square. And you can imagine that if something like this happens, pawn captures on f6, then the queen can easily come to h6. Well, not through there, obviously, but something like this. Well, threaten checkmate for the rest of the game. It will be very hard for Caruana to do anything. First, rook to c7 to lessen any threats along the f-file, as Caruana knows that Vincent will double up on the f-file. So, rook to f1, Vincent is ready. Bishop to d5 now, bishop now also guards the f7 pawn, and now just rook to f6 as planned. We have rook to rook to c6, hoping that Vincent will capture here, but Vincent just improves his pressure along the f-file. We have queen to f2, and then now a5. Caruana now has to look for chances on the queen side. He wants to capture on b4, well, use the a-file for his rook. We have h5 by Vincent. Here, everyone was saying how Vincent is playing both on the queen side and on the king side. He's preparing to push h6, maybe create some sort of an alpha 0 position. But okay, a captures on b4, a captures on b4, and here rook to f8. And here Vincent was very happy when Caruana played rook to f8, and he immediately played rook to f1. But this is already move 32, and they still have 8 moves to make to reach time control, and it's a very delicate position. Here, Vincent played rook to f1. He decided he immediately wants to deliver checkmate in any way he can, but as e6 was the threat, rook to f8 was a very nice move by Caruana. But there was a deadlier move instead of rook to c1. If you want, well, it's hard to decide what to play here. For example, if you play a rook captures, this is not possible because white will not capture the rook. Black will capture on g5 with check, and then after you block, only then will black capture, and no longer you have any sort of an attack. Black is just better here. So there is one move you can play here that's better than Vincent's idea after rook to f8, but it's a really, really insane engine line, so I'll give you a couple of seconds if you want to try and find it. But it's just really crazy. In case any of you found it, really congratulations, you are just a mastermind. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, there is the fancy line of queen to f4, controlling the g5 pawn, and now you will be able to capture here, and the queen will be guarding the g5 pawn. But there is this idea of queen captures on b4, and now here's the problem. You play bishop to d7. Now you force black to capture on f6. After black captures, you now play g captures on f6 with ideas of queen to h6 followed by queen to g7 checkmate. Once the rook moves, now not of course queen to h6 because queen to f8 can block checkmate. First you play pawn captures on g6. This is the point. And only after h captures on g6, now you play bishop back to g4. You don't allow the rook to capture your bishop. And also the bishop is controlling some of the squares here around the white king if black decides to play some tricky checking ideas. But here now, after black makes some move, let's say rook to a8, now you go for e6, and here white will break through. Bishop captures, you can go bishop captures, f captures, and now queen to h6, threatening checkmate. And after queen to f8, now all sorts of ideas are possible. Queen captures on g6 check, king h8, queen to h5 check, king g8, now comes rook to f1, preparing f7, and only after the queen blocks, now you go queen to h6, preparing a nice rook lift, and only after a queen trade is offered, as there's no way to block this. Now you go f7 check, and now it's over. But you know, it's really a crazy line, and you can't really calculate it. You have to really you have to wing it and see what happens. But that's obviously not how you play against a World Chess Championship challenger. So here Vincent decided to go for rook to f1, and now comes the move Vincent missed. Because if he saw the move, he most likely would have gone for that idea, even though it's impossible to calculate it all the way until the end. Here, c3. And now you can see the problems. c2 and c1 is coming. And also, you can see that the bishop is now free to control the a2 square. And now you can see this rook a8 to a2 idea. And now it's not all that easy to decide what to do. Here, still, queen to f4 was Vincent's best choice, but Vincent went king to h2, now making it even even more possible for Caruana to immediately activate the rook. Here Caruana played rook to a8 because now the queen and king are aligned. Now rook to a2 is a terrible threat. The bishop still controls the a2 square. And there's no good way to handle this. I mean, there is. Here, Vincent played h captures on g6, but still king to g3 would have promised an interesting game. Because now, after rook to a2, you can go still queen to f4, and now, if black decides to push the pawn, let's say pawn to c2, now you can still play e6, and, well, it will just be a winning game for white. But this is not forced. This is just something that is possible after the king moves from the second rank. Now, if you bring a queen into the game, black does have two queens, but it doesn't mean all that much. If you capture here, you attack the black queen, but now, let's say black threatens checkmate, you can just go rook f8 check, king here, and h6 checkmate. One of the possibilities, but you have to get the king away from the second rank. Here, Vincent played h captures on g6, h captures on g6, and now he captured the rook captures on c6. Now the king is no longer here, so the queen cannot capture the g5 pawn with check. Bishop captures on c6, and now rook to c1. It's move 36, Vincent still has to make 4 moves to reach time control, and he's down to, I think, about 2 minutes at about this point. So he attacks the c3 pawn, but Caruana now just captures the b pawn. Now he will move the queen, and he will start pushing the b pawn as well. And it seems that there is no the attack that Vincent had no longer exists. Now Vincent plays king to g3, but now it is somewhat too late. Queen to a3 attacks the rook. We have rook to h1, and here just c2. And you can't capture it. If you capture, then just queen captures here. King h2, queen f4 check, king moves, and now e3 comes with check, and well, it's a winning position for black. So after c2, Vincent said, okay, no more waiting, now we have to go all in. He played e6. So what do you do here? Obviously, if you capture, then you get bishop captures with check, king g7, and queen to f6 checkmate. This is not possible for Caruana. But there is a move that's possible, and that's either to bring the rook back or to just block it with bishop to e8. Now the f7 pawn is protected, there are no tricks. Here queen to d2 was played, but now just queen to d3. Caruana offers a trade of queens, and there's not all that much you can do here. Queen to f2 was played by Vincent, and now rook to a3. As there are no threats from white's perspective, Caruana threatens to win the e3 pawn, and then black's position will further deteriorate. King to f4 was played defending the e3 pawn, and here Caruana just played queen to d1, and it was in this position that Vincent Keymer resigned the game. Why did he resign? Well, there's nothing to do here. Let's say there really isn't anything you can do here. You have to protect your rook here. If you capture, then just pawn captures. You lose a rook for nothing. If you don't do it, black will just bring another queen into the game, and there's no good move white can make. But I did think of a funny idea that Vincent could have tried, but I think it would be rude to try something like this against someone of Caruana's caliber. I thought of the idea pawn captures on f7, bishop captures, and now bishop here. And now, if Caruana would be gullible enough, you know, to just bring a queen into the game, now you have this trick of bishop captures with check. You can still avoid this trick by going king g7, but if you capture, now you get king captures here with check. And now you can't go anywhere towards the center, or you're getting mated, so you have to go back king g8, and now you have this rook to h8 check. Captures, and now you can have a nice perpetual here. But that's a lot of maybes, and of course Caruana would not fall for this with, you know, never. But, you know, I don't know. So some sneaky players would try even something like this, because history is full of sneaky plays like this, and it does happen. But yeah, Vincent is too respectful towards Caruana to even attempt such a silly idea. So yeah, that's the game. Keymer versus Caruana from round 3 of the GRENKE Chess Classic 2019. As always, there will be a couple of useful links in the description below, so do check it out. And yeah, I would like to thank Pierre Alexander Wells, Lemo Muro, Vincente Quintanilla, Peter East, and Simon Johansson for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, hopefully with some more interesting content. So yeah, thank you all, have an excellent rest of your day.